without purse hooks.
Yes.
There's purse hooks in the potty. There's purse hooks at the hand sinks. I mean, if a woman's carrying a $3,000 bag, I can tell you she's not setting it on a countertop.
Nope.
And she's not setting it on the restroom floor.
Nope.
And I can tell you the 40-second, the 35 to 40-second sitting in the stall, you're being inspected. That's your cleanliness inspection by your clientele.
This week, it's my long-awaited, hotly anticipated guest returning from Dallas, Bruce Russo, the most acclaimed, award-winning restaurant designer in the United States. In the hour ahead, Bruce and I are combining his restaurant design consulting and operation of nearly 600 concepts with my years of restaurant consulting and marketing to talk about what makes restaurants thrive, barely survive, and fail, because we want to see every restaurant thrive. So, Bruce, welcome. How are you today?
Excellent.
And you are in Dallas and it's raining right now.
Correct.
Correct. Well, we have sunny skies here in Laguna Beach, so we're looking forward to you and your wife coming out here soon.
Good.
Which may happen because the first thing on the agenda today, I want to talk about what's now coming into 222 Ocean Avenue. So you're familiar with 222 Ocean Avenue, aren't you, Bruce?
Very.
Very.
There's a piece of soul there.
There's a piece of your body buried in the concrete
Yes.
of that foundational restaurant. So we figure it was like around 2016, 2017 that your client, who you've done many concepts for, asked you to come up to Laguna Beach to oversee the architectural development and concepting of their new restaurant, which at the time was called Taverna.
Correct.
And you thought you were probably going to stop in for a week or two and hang out at your house with your wife in Laguna. I think you're in Laguna Niguel, right?
Yeah.
Thought you were going to hang out, go to restaurants, go back home to Dallas. And instead you were here for how many months?
18 months.
18 months. 18 months. So Bruce, when you typically develop a concept and you're taking it from a retail space like this one was into a restaurant space, of course, there's going to be more to do because they don't have anything built in the kitchen, no equipment, no nothing. Right. So typically in your world of developing nearly 600 concepts, about how much time does that take anywhere else?
Well, there's many factors.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, zoning. Is the space, can the use be changed from retail to restaurant, which is a A2 occupancy? So right. That's typically the biggest, because it's all, the second thing is use. First is use. Second thing is parking. Park's different for a restaurant than it does for retail.
Right.
So that's two of the biggest things on the agenda when you're starting out.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, parking is always an issue here in Laguna Beach. People complain about it a lot. Do you have parking issues in other cities and towns?
You know, every city has parking issues, and how they address it, it's different all over the country. Mm-hmm. Like Coconut Grove, I don't know how it is now, but years ago we did concepts there, and in Coconut Grove, you paid for parking spaces that didn't exist.
Oh, perfect.
So if you
parking spaces in the sky.
Correct. If your restaurant needed 60 parking spaces, they had a formula that they developed that you would pay, and it was a yearly fee for parking spaces. But if you were to ask them, okay, well, where's my 60 parking spaces? Well, they're scattered throughout the city.
No way.
Oh yeah, nothing. There was no given address for it. You know, and then other cities, you know, if the city is really trying to develop an urban motivated, pedestrian friendly area, mm-hmm. they'll accept parking for restaurants. And then we have the cities that want a parking space for every two people that are going to be in that restaurant.
Right. Perfect.
So, yeah. I mean, there's a big swing there. I mean, it's, you know,
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So in Laguna, I believe it's a parking space per 100 square feet. Is that right?
Probably. Yeah.
Together with Todd Scandari and the parking
Yep.
star of Laguna Beach. You
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
with Todd.
I did. Great
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
And so, so in Laguna Beach, you had to deal with the zoning, and then you had to deal with and the zoning, of course, was kind of taken care of on the front end, I would assume. Then you had to deal with the parking spaces, and then you had to deal with the historical resonance of the building.
Correct.
And you have said in the first interview that you did with me, you said that the city required a 95% return to the historical foundation of the building. Is that correct?
Well, the goal was to redo the building to 90 to 95% accuracy of the original building, which was built as Laguna Savings and Loan.
Mm.
I think that was 1953, or it was early 50s, I believe.
Right.
So up until us getting there for the restaurant concept, there was nobody was watchdogging there was nobody watching the historic elements of that building.
Right, because it had been a savings and loan, and then it became retail. I remember when I moved here, it was a Big Dog t-shirt store, and then it changed into a rug store. And no one really cared at the point because it was just a big empty box
Empty box with a safe.
with a safe.
Yeah, because we tore the safe out when we did Taverna.
I bet.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a restaurant in Denver that used to be called Downtown that you would eat in the safe.
Yeah.
No, those are kind of
Done
cool.
a few of those. We've done a few of those. Yeah.
They take a lot of room.
Yes.
So when you looked at the zoning issues and all of the permitting and, the fact that you had to do a grease trap, I think, on the ceiling or the roof, right?
The grease trap, somebody originally thought we could put it in the driveway between the two buildings, but that doesn't work with anybody. I mean, the grease trap has to be on the property. It can't share property lines anyway. I got that straightened out, and I used a grease trap, what we call a hybrid grease trap. Oh, just to kind of put it in perspective, a hybrid grease trap for 3,000 gallons of flow will fit in the back of a pickup truck, compared to a regular concrete grease trap with 3,000 gallon flow would be a little bit bigger than the entire pickup.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
there's hybrid engineering in the hybrid grease traps that, I mean, they're actually the wave of the future. So there's a lot of positive aspects there, but that's how I conquered the grease trap issue.
So in the 18 months that you were here, what do you think was the biggest time eater in the development of this place?
Getting all the plans done to meet the city's criteria, and numerous meetings with zoning, numerous meetings with the historical district, and numerous meetings with the city until we got final approval to get started. And I would say that was probably, if I had a guess, that was probably an 8-month process.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sure that the restaurants that followed Taverna are very happy that you went through that process for them.
Well, because I think there was a lot of things that came out in the Taverna project that kind of set the standard on how the city moved forward on some things, how to approach it, and what was really necessary and what was unnecessary to really make it all come together. So
when you went in to develop that restaurant, how much more did you spend percentage wise above what the initial estimate?
I think at the end of the day, we're about 40% over budget.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, 18 months later, you're finally opening the restaurant.
The monumental steps that we took and how it happened, every one of those approvals would light a fire, and then the fire would start to dwindle. Then we get another approval, and the fire would light again, and it would start to. So yeah, it was a big back and forth, but at the end of the day, as you see, we succeeded in pulling off the historical look and matching everything that was there, and the tile, the tile that is around the fountain, the hand painted tile that was put there originally when the building was built. It was covered by a shed during the retail
Okay.
portion of, they had storage, and And so when the shed was demoed and all that was it was a significant find, the fountain and all the hand painted tile and everything.
Right. And then didn't you have a Laguna Beach artist come in and kind of fix up some of that tile?
Well, we did. Actually, I believe it was the daughter of the original artist that did it.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. And there were some things that, like we put lemon trees for just to get some landscape that the historical district had us take away because it was interrupting the historical look of the fountain.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting comment for Ruben to comment on. My buddy who is the tree guy in town, he's the guy who's always sort of monitoring what's going on with the trees and checking with the city on the trees. And it's unfortunate that you lost those lemon trees because what a great theme for the restaurant. Well,
and I didn't have any place to put them, so I put them in my backyard.
Okay, well, you purchased them, you got to do something with them, and then you sold your backyard.
Yeah. But they were Meyer lemon trees, and they were excellent lemons. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Okay, so to get around to what the announcement is Palisades Hospitality is coming into 222 Ocean now. Now, many of the residents here, Taverna was here for a while, and then we lost it, and then the great Craig Strong came in and developed Ocean at Main, and we all loved Craig, but he had difficulties making that concept work, various reasons. Also had some parking issues that didn't get resolved that I think could have really helped him with the business. But at any rate, then we ended up with two other concepts that I thought were kind of a smaller restaurant concept that they were putting into quite a large space because there's about an occupancy of 160 occupants in that restaurant space.
I believe that's big. Right. Yes. Plus the patio.
Oh, right. Okay. So yes, that's extensive. And when you have a concept that's a little more just not as pedestrian, so to speak, sometimes it's better, I think, for a concept to move into a space that's a little smaller so that they can get their feet under them and really get the city accustomed to whatever they're serving. And then, increase their size from there. But at any rate, we've been through 4 concepts there. Palisades Hospitality is coming in with their Piatti concept. And the interesting thing, what's that?
That's what I hear.
Yeah. The interesting thing is you're the one who heard it and told me. I couldn't get the information from the city. I've been calling him. But my friend Bruce from Dallas knows what's going on in Laguna Beach. So Piatti is interesting. They have Palisades Hospitality is out of Mill Valley, and they own a number of hospitality concepts, including spas, hotels, and restaurants. And the Piatti concept, I think they have about 8 of them, the closest of which is in La Jolla. And it's very popular. It's what they call sort of an Italian trattoria neighborhood community type of restaurant. They make their own pastas. They make their own sauces every day, of course. They have a lot of packaged products, olive oils, oils, vinegars, pastas to go, all that kind of thing. So they're setting up a bit of a market, as I understand, in the restaurant as well. And so they've really got a handle on this. These are not brand new newbies. These people know what they're doing. They have many concepts that they're working with. So I'm really looking forward to that, moving into that space. I think
that's exactly what that location needs.
Yes, I agree completely. Because, Ruben and I have talked about the fact that with all the nightclub permits there in the lower half of Ocean, it's time to really move a significant restaurant into that space so that we can begin to shift the energy of the lower half of Ocean Avenue.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be great. And you found out about it because you actually were called. There may be a chance that you'll be back up here.
Possibly. Pacific Rim Architects was the architect of record for me when I did the project. They're involved because of their involvement in the project, and that would be the source to call. We'll just kind of wait and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be awesome. So if you were pulled into the project, and if you did talk with these people, and if you did have a little more leeway from the city, if the magic wand could be like, bing, what would you change to make that a more successful concept? If you could do anything.
I would put the entry where the double doors are to the patio. The energy connects the concept as you walk in. Energy breeds energy in the restaurant business.
Right.
And where the original front entry door is, it's at the opposite end of the building. And everything was designed around that because, we had a ball and chain and our hands were cuffed, so to speak. How would that work with the bar where it is? I mean, we could do some quick design work and put some nice foliage and create a path to the bar that wouldn't look like a path. It would just, it would work well. I think that's the main thing that would change the operation of that concept.
Isn't that amazing? Just where the door is.
Yes.
Well, you weren't able to even enlarge the door space on the front side of the restaurant. No. Yeah.
We took the door that is the front entry. We took the original door and had a millwork company make that door to the exact specification of the existing door that was there. That was the case with all the windows and everything.
Okay. Wow. Yes, I know there is some historical significance, and there are other restaurant owners who have gone into that historical kind of world in Laguna Beach, and it really has been, sometimes they can't even replace the glass in the windows.
Well, we couldn't either. If it wasn't broken, if the glass wasn't broken, it remained, because it's all about the waviness and the little pimples and pot marks. The glass isn't perfect. It adds a patina to the building.
Now, you just mentioned something interesting about the bar, which I'd like to get into, where you initially had to use the front door for the entryway into the restaurant. You put the bar on the right-hand side of the restaurant. Now Correct. You're saying that if you were able to work the entry from the patio, the bar would be against the back wall. So Correct. I'd like to get your opinion about where bars should be in a restaurant, because I love this.
Okay, so in this particular case, I can tell you that I avoid putting a bar on a back wall to where patrons walking to the bar have to walk through a dining room. I think it's very wrong to disturb paying clients eating dinner, just having the traffic to the bar. But, on the other hand, what I'm about to say, I have no proof, but I can tell you that it's just my own findings that every restaurant I designed with a bar on the right when you walk in does more business than any bar on the left or in the middle. And I can't tell you why that is.
But you have an opinion about that. You think maybe...
I think it's because majority of people are right-handed. So, if you study people when they walk in a restaurant like I studied them, they take like 3 seconds to scan. When they walk in, it's a left-hand look, 1001, 1002, 1003. And then they scan the restaurant in those 3 seconds. And then you can see the light bulb go off and they decide, number one, where they would like to sit, if they're going to the dining room or if they're going to the bar. Now, just saying that, even yourself, just thinking that, I can tell you that's exactly what you do.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Well, and it's interesting too, because in most cases, I'm a single woman walking into a restaurant. Correct. Either I'm there as sort of a secret shopper for a restaurant owner who's hired me, or I'm there to do a restaurant review, or I'm there to just eat. And I may be traveling anywhere in the country doing this work, whatever. And as a single woman, first of all, I want to be able to look at the restaurant. And sometimes I'll go in and there's a whole wall there behind the host stand, and there's no way I can see. And I have to actually ask them, I say, can I look around you and look at the restaurant? And they always kind of look at me like I've got, peacock feathers coming out of my head. But there is something about that. I mean, for a single woman coming in, do I feel like the bar is a safe place that I can sit at? And do I want to sit at a table at the bar, or do I want to sit at the bar itself? And because typically I'll do that rather than sit at a table. If I sit at a table, people walk by me and I'm sure they're like, she got stood up. Poor girl. Look at her sitting there. So I do like to be able to scan a restaurant, and I do prefer to sit at the bar because I feel like it's kind of a safety zone for me. Like the bartender's kind of like, I've got you, right? I'm not there to be picked up on or do anything like that. I just feel like there's a bit more of a connection with somebody who sees me and is aware of me being there.
I get it.
Yeah, kind of interesting. I bring this story up too, because if you don't mind, I'll segue a little bit. Last weekend, I went into one of my favorite restaurants here, and which I typically sit at the bar, and it was an early dinner kind of thing for me. And when I walked in, the owner was there and gave me a big hug, and the owner was talking with 2 or 3 people that worked there, and the owner was leaving, but they saw the owner give me a big hug and make a point about the fact that I was somebody special to her. And I went and sat at the bar, and I knew the bartender wasn't there right now, but I could tell that he had been there because there were people sitting at the bar and they had their food and they had all that kind of thing going on. And so I sat down. The owner left the restaurant, and 11 people walked past me and ignored me. I even had an assistant manager standing 2 seats down from me with 2 other servers, gossiping about other people in the restaurant and clients in the restaurant while I was sitting there. It was like I was completely invisible. Even the hostess, who was going around and laying out menus at all the tables, walked past me 3 times, didn't even acknowledge me, didn't even give me a menu.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And so I actually, after I sat there for a couple minutes and wondered if I was like that invisible rabbit that, Cary Grant used to talk to, I started my stopwatch on my phone just to see how long it was going to take before I was going to be acknowledged. It was 8 minutes. So that means I must have sat there for 10 and a half, 11 minutes with not one person acknowledging me.
Wow.
And this is where people like me, the consultant, who thinks like a consumer, comes in. I mean, my goodness, imagine being a secret shopper, being paid by the restaurant owner and having that kind of a treatment. Imagine being a restaurant reviewer, which I always am, coming in and having that kind of treatment. But really, imagine a patron coming in, especially by themselves, and getting that kind of a treatment.
I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes it's better it happens that way because you're in the restaurant business, I'm in the restaurant business, and we're pretty well known. So when we go into restaurants, it's kind of like we get the treatment.
Great service.
Yeah. But it's good for something like an incident like this to happen, because that really lets you know that sometimes they get caught with their pants down, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
What we see when we dine there is not necessarily the case 100% of the time.
True. I mean, my friends always want to go dining with me in Laguna Beach because they know they're going to get great service and maybe even more food.
We know, well, trust me. Oh, well.
Yeah. But understanding that every single patron is your golden egg.
Yep.
If I had sat there even a minute longer, I probably would have gotten up and left. And if I had been a consumer, I would have left a Yelp review.
And I was going to say that if you were just a typical client that walked in and didn't get water or anything for 11 minutes,
yeah,
I can tell if I had my typical consumer hat on, we wouldn't have waited either.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I know in a lot of management training in all the restaurants that I've been involved with, and there's a certain time frame that the guest needs to be greeted, at least made eye contact with, even if somebody is in the weeds and they're working really hard, just making eye contact or sending a busser over with water or doing something to acknowledge that you're a person sitting in that space it shouldn't literally be under 90 seconds.
And there again, sometimes just an apology acknowledged is best.
Exactly. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting situation. And another thing that makes me crazy, I'm just going to tell you this now, for all of you restaurant owners listening out there, when I come into a restaurant by myself, the last thing I want someone to ask me at the host stand is it just you? Or are you alone? You're alone, right? Immediately, you kind of feel like this stigma. Yeah, it's just me. Nobody loves me. Nobody wants to be my friend. But I'm trying to be brave and come out here and be in the world as a single woman.
And it's funny you say that, because I don't think I've ever been in a restaurant that had a table for one. So there's no need to ask. The worst thing you're going to get is a deuce.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Right? If you're by yourself. If you had 3 other people coming, you would tell the host when she was taking you to a deuce, oh no, this isn't going to work. I got 3 more people coming.
Right. We had talked about hosts and maitre d's and the importance of that person at the front of your restaurant. And you made such a good point. You said they have got to be the smartest, slickest, fastest thinking person in the restaurant.
Absolutely. They need to have all the answers, and they need to have all the fixes in their pocket. And they need to be able to sell and make decisions like they are the owner.
Exactly.
And the owner has to encourage that.
Exactly. Now, you had said at a certain, revenue point, say you're doing, fast casual compared to more of a formal dining, you may have a host or a hostess that just seats people.
Correct.
But I think even in that case, you're still losing out, because if you really train that person to be friendly, welcoming, I told you one of the things that I hate to hear too is when I go into a restaurant. I mean, I understand. I used to work in restaurants. I used to be the manager of a Village Inn pancake house for years when I was like 16. So I worked in restaurants for years and years, even with my full-time job. And then I was, always training and doing management and director of operations and all this sort of stuff, right? But what's so interesting is that, you get these hosts or hostesses who like grab the menus and walk 20 feet ahead of you and don't have any conversation with you. And you're just kind of like throwing the menus down, that kind of thing. But one of the things that really makes me crazy is when I go into a restaurant and I know that there are empty tables, there's empty seats at the bar, there's different stuff going on. I can see, and I know that people have shifts and you only want to put so many people in a certain section for a server. I get all that. I understand it all. But the last thing I want to have a host tell me is, we are fully committed. I'm sorry, we're fully committed tonight. Goodbye. Like they don't even say, I'm sorry, we've got all these crazy reservations. There's a chance that someone won't show up. Would you like to sit at our bar and have a drink? We have a full menu there. We have a great menu there. Or I'm sorry, we've got a huge private party coming in tonight, which is really going to be taking up a lot of our space and time. How about you try this restaurant next door? And would you please come back tomorrow night?
I can tell you the best scenario when it's that, always buy them a drink.
Yes.
I mean, what does the drink cost you cost-wise? Under $2.
Right.
And it's not like you're going to give 100 of them away in a night.
Very true.
If it's that busy and you bought 10 drinks for the evening, you got 10 people walking the street telling 10 other people, man, we went in there. They said they were busy, but they went ahead and bought us a drink.
Yeah.
Those 10 people will tell 10 more. That's 100 people that now know.
And what's great about that, Bruce? That just brought something to my mind. When you have the manager say, or the maitre d' say, I'm sorry, we are really booked up tonight, but let me buy you a drink at least, because I really appreciate you coming in. There's 15, 20 minutes of that person or those people standing there looking at how amazing your restaurant and your busy bar are. And of course, they want to come back to that energetic experience, right? So you're keeping them there and you're selling them on the restaurant, even if you're not able to seat them and feed them.
Let me just tell you a quick story. Mastro's in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Mary and I were eating dinner there. Well, we went there and maitre d', true professional, walks up to me and he shakes my hand, introduces himself. He said, I'm going to tell you that we are totally slammed right now. Mm-hmm. Let me buy you a drink and let me see if I can fit something in for you. Okay, 3 minutes later, we seen that guy carrying a table, goose table, and two guys following with chairs. He set it up. It was right outside the kitchen door. It wasn't the best place in the house, but John Davidson was his name. I'll never forget him.
Wow.
And that was probably, Maestro's was probably open maybe 90 days. Phoenix was their first one. So I got to say that was easily 15, 16, 17 years ago.
And you still remember his name?
Yes.
It doesn't take much to make people feel special. No. And it doesn't take much to teach your people that extra effort creates ripples and waves. I mean, how many people have you told that story to?
Plus, I probably made his mortgage payment tip-wise too.
Yeah. It's a good point.
You just, how often do you get that? And when you do get it, you got to appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You and I appreciate it because we know the back of the house and we know the front of the house and we know the guns that are at everybody's head during an operational night evening.
Right. I mean, and it was interesting. Ruben said something the other day after he listened to our first interview. He said, when you're just a customer, you really don't even know what's going on.
No.
And he said, it's so interesting to talk to you two because now we get more of the depth of like what's really going on in an operation and all the pieces that are moving.
That was a big thing that's why I did the TV show that I did.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to show the general public what it actually takes to get a restaurant built and the process. And just because it's opening day, a lot of people have no clue what it takes to get it to opening day.
Right. Exactly. I have a restaurant owner here who's opening her restaurant on Monday. And I checked in with her yesterday because I said, I'm going to be putting it out on my blog and I want to make sure that, you're still planning to be open. And, you and I had talked about opening day is what you plan the whole plan for. The whole plan is set for whatever that opening day is. But just because it's opening day doesn't mean that they've got all their crap together.
Exactly.
So whenever I go in, I'll go in, they'll invite me in. Usually, I'm sure this happens with you as well. They invite you in on the friends and family, the soft open, so that they can kind of get their feet under them. When the public just does an onslaught hit of them on the very first day, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be one of the worst days that restaurant ever has.
And this brings me to, the ones that have been in it for a long, long time and how they do their openings versus the ones that, man, we got to open.
Right.
And the ones that have done it time and time again, it may be 180 seat restaurant. They're letting 40 people in.
Absolutely.
For their first 3 days. And you're not getting the menu because here's the big problem. If you have filet mignon on the menu, 80% of the people are going to buy the filet mignon. That does nothing for the kitchen. It doesn't let the kitchen staff do what they're supposed to do. So the best way I've seen it, first day, you seat 30% of the restaurant and everybody, they don't get a menu. They get a sheet that says, if there's 4 people, there's 4 pieces of paper that are at the table and each one of them has a different entree. Trust me, that's the most successful way to do it because then
I agree.
The entire menu is averaged. The entire menu comes out of the kitchen.
Yes. Yes.
And so when they do that and they train and they do friends and family for 3 or 4 or 5 days, now the kitchen's ready to produce that menu.
I will say that one of the biggest things I do is, and I know they're eager to get open. I know they want to get that revenue in the door. But the last thing you want to do is crowd that restaurant to the point where your cooks want to quit, your servers want to quit, everyone is exhausted. They begin to dread coming back the next day and the next day because they're slammed and they're not fully trained. Even if you've done all kinds of training, you just can't get ready for that many people in the restaurant. So I'm of the same ilk. I'll say, okay, we're going to start with just 20 to 30% of your restaurant. That's all we're opening right now. And it's a small menu that we're putting out there. And the other thing too is so many times in friends and family parties, people will do like cocktails, past hors d'oeuvres. That's really not testing the kitchen.
That's a social gathering. Right. That's not a business move.
Agree.
You need to know how your business is going to operate under pressure.
Yes.
Absolutely. And having hors d'oeuvres and cocktails, that's a social event that should happen the week before friends and family.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see. She's opening and then another restaurant is opening finally on Restaurant Row, hopefully before Thanksgiving. And they both have very large spaces.
That's good.
Both of these people are experienced restaurant owners. So I'm hoping that they're following kind of that protocol. But let's get back to, we were talking about bars and talking about restaurants in general, how to make patrons feel welcome. And I want to let's see how much time we have. Okay, let me say quickly, this is Diane Armitage, KXFM Radio, Best of Laguna Beach. And I'm here with Bruce Russo, one of the greatest, most prolific restaurant developers, concept designers in the country.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, of course. You're the bomb. For all of you listeners here, we're talking about what restaurants can do to change up the physical concept, as well as the training concept, as well as the welcoming concept, so that restaurants really can thrive. And it also makes consumers, I think, patrons understand what restaurants are really doing every single night that you're there and to really appreciate them more at a different level. Talk a little bit more about what you do, because you do more physical design than I do in my restaurant consulting world. But there are definitely things that I say from a consumer point of view. I'm like, okay, I really want you to put this and this and this in. So when we're talking about bars, One of the most important things to me in my whole entire world, I know this sounds crazy to just about anyone but you, is purse hooks.
Absolutely.
Absolutely purse hooks. Now, Bruce, why don't you tell me why you think purse hooks are so important? Because you're a guy, you're not even carrying a purse around.
There's many elements that shape the favor of the women in a restaurant design. It's the majority. So we look at the majority, and I can tell you that 90% of the dining experiences are decided in the right-hand seat of the car. Okay. So when that happens, in my opinion, when I design, one of the biggest criteria is I cater to the female.
Well, it's exactly what the cruise ships do.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you why, because if I fulfill her expectations from a design standpoint of view, and the restaurant fulfills her expectations from a dining standpoint of view, which design and the food and the design go together, believe it or not, she's coming back. Okay. And it doesn't matter if the World Series is on, that's where her and her husband are eating dinner.
Right.
He can tape the World Series. He can record it. But it goes further than the bar. It's purse hooks, and I put plug strips underneath the bar tops so you can plug your phone in and charge your phone. And there's areas of the bar, we all use the ADA section of the bar. Everybody's aware of it. Well, I've taken it upon myself. In my designs, I always look for the negative and see how I can design it and turn it into a positive. In fine dining, when the check average exceeds $100, I enlarge the handicap countertop because it's at the perfect height for a woman to sit in a regular chair and cross her legs. There, the purse hooks are put in a different position. So when she crosses her legs, she's not hitting her knee on the purse hook.
Right.
All those things are considered. And when we talk about purse hooks, we need, we don't do a restroom without purse hooks.
Yes.
There's purse hooks in the potty. There's purse hooks at the hand sinks. I mean, if a woman's carrying a $3,000 bag, I can tell you she's not setting it on a countertop.
Nope.
And she's not setting it on the restroom floor.
Nope.
And I can tell you that the 35 to 40-second sitting in the stall, you're being inspected. That's your cleanliness inspection by your clientele. I can tell you that there's a lot of people view the cleanliness of your restaurant based on that 40-second sitting. And if the restroom isn't clean, their first thought is, I wonder what the kitchen looks like.
Absolutely. And it goes both ways. We're not just talking about women's bathrooms. We're talking about the men's bathrooms as well.
Yes. I'm a big fan of restroom design. I view the whole design. You're dating, the restaurant should be dating you. Okay. If you're going there for a date, you're going there for a date. So that restaurant needs to keep that dating experience and that energy at the high level. You don't want to kill it. And the last stop that men or women go to is the restroom. What does a woman want to see? She wants a place where she can put her bag that's not going to get ruined. She wants a place where she can put her bag when she goes to the restroom before they leave. And the biggest thing, they want a big mirror so they can make sure all the real estate is in proper order before they leave. And it's the same thing for the men. The big mirror on the exit's a big thing. Trust me.
No, I agree with you. I think it's classic. And I really don't think I see many places with big mirrors. I know Broadway by Mar Santana has them. A
lot of owners just look at the restrooms as, well, it's something I need for function. Well, I can tell you that it's way beyond that. I encourage some serious money to be spent in the restroom because that's where the ownership shows the customer how much he loves him or her being there.
Dating them.
Exactly. The restroom is the final foreplay, so to speak. And they have to, it's in the tile, it's in the finishes, it's in the lighting. You have to want the last impression to be $1 million impression. The restrooms are where it happens.
It's a very, very good point. Because all I can think about is I remember the restrooms I love, and I remember the restrooms that I thought were despicable,
Yes.
even in a fine dining restaurant. I
I
remember
mean,
when I was working with Michelin starred restaurants in Vegas, there were two there. Chef Andre Rachat, he had come to Las Vegas in the early 70s. He brought the wine list. They didn't have wine lists until he showed up. And he started a downtown restaurant called Andre's, and then he moved to the Monte Carlo, which is no longer the Monte Carlo. And then he built Alizé on top of the Palms, and beautiful, stunning. Both restaurants Michelin starred. And they would have someone go in a couple times during service in the evening with rosemary burning, and they'd wave it around in the restrooms, just kind of have this, they were very meticulous about it. And it just makes a big difference. Part of the reason why I love going to the Ritz-Carlton here in Laguna Niguel, I'll go there and work on my laptop sometimes in the middle of the day because the bar is always empty. There's no one there. So I just sit at the window with the beautiful ocean, even though I have a beautiful ocean right here. And I still feel a little opulent. I love feeling opulent. I love going to the restroom there. It's opulent. And it doesn't take much to put that detail into that restroom.
I've taken it to the point, there's a restaurant on design where the women's restroom is round.
Oh.
And the doors that go to the stalls, I had them custom made the same radius of the wall. So it's completely round. All the wainscot is all marble, cool. It's all hand cut in Italy. The countertops are, everything is based on one big circle, and the crown mold, then I had artists come in and paint champagne bubbles on the ceiling. Pretty stunning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. That is really cool. One of the strangest restrooms I remember is when I was at a new concept in downtown Lodo, Denver, when Lodo was coming up and around. And they had, tell me what you think about this, because I remember it. They had designed it so that there really wasn't a wall between the men's and women's. There were big mirrors that were hanging down over the sinks. And when you came out of your stall, fortunately, the men had stalls only. They didn't have a urinal. But when you came out and you started washing your hands, you were basically, if you looked this way, you could see a person washing their hands on the other side.
Right.
What do you think of that?
I have mixed feelings about that. And, we design a lot of restaurants with co-ed restrooms, and some are accepted okay, and women a lot of times don't like the co-ed restrooms. But when I do co-ed restrooms, I put a sink, and it's a full restroom. They could freshen up, they could do whatever they need to do, and not have Johnny Q. Public watching.
Right.
And it's important. So they're basically, when we do co-ed bathrooms, they're very private. And they're very personal.
Yeah, I kind of found it a little disarming because even though the men go in their door and the women go in their door, you're trying to put your makeup on or your lipstick on or something, and there's a guy.
Well, and it's funny you say that. Many years ago, this is when it first came out. I did a club in Miami that had glass that you flip a switch and it would frost to where you couldn't see it.
Oh.
That was in between restrooms.
Right, that's interesting. Yeah,
it had a motion switch whenever the male or the female got far enough into the restroom, the lights would fog. The glass would fog, and you couldn't see in it.
Interesting. Okay, so I want you to tell me a little bit about. We need to wrap up here. I just love chatting with you. This is so much fun for me. I hope everyone else out there enjoys it, but I absolutely love chatting with you about restaurants. It's just my love. You were telling me about doing a concept for an entertainment center in Dallas. And so you, of course, go secret shop the other entertainment centers that are similar. I do the same thing. When I have restaurant owners come in and they're looking for me to help them with site selection and, look at different concepts that they, want to know what's going on about, I do a lot of that too. I go secret shop. So you said that there's another entertainment center in higher level Dallas. And it's very popular with after work people. And they have live music. I don't know if they do it all the time.
Live music 3 days a week.
Okay. So tell me how they handle their restrooms.
Well, I'll tell you this. There's three in the market that I've really studied for the past 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. And they're all designed horribly. A lot of the things were done after the fact. And in this particular one that you just mentioned, that you and I talked about, they have 3 potties for the women and 2 urinals and a potty for the men.
And how many people come on an evening for live music?
Musical evening, there's 300 to 400 people.
Wow.
So what the owner does is they bring porta potties, trailer porta potties, and park them in the parking lot.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, a woman with red sole shoes and a $4,000 bag, and you're going to direct her to a porta potty, I have a big problem with that equation.
I mean, even the trailers, that they try to make fancy. No.
No. There's a certain level, your clientele's at a certain level, they have a certain level of expectation. So in this particular case, that clientele is actually settling, lowering their standard to be entertained. And that's not what our business is about. That is all about.
I love that. That is absolutely correct. Now, I mean, I get it. You have an expectation, right? So for instance, if you go to the Ohana Festival and you're in the VIPs, they have those porta potties out there, but you're in the middle of a field and you're at an all day music festival. You're wearing different clothes. You're expecting to have porta potties that are those big trailers.
And when you ask people, hey, what do you think of the porta potties? Like, you know what? At least I don't have to find a gas station.
Right.
They're happy to have them.
Yeah.
That's a whole different scenario.
Agreed.
Okay. When you're an establishment that you designed to build a building to do X, Y, and Z, I mean, the kitchen isn't even big enough.
So let me just ask you, with the entertainment center that you're putting into place, how many restrooms are you putting in?
I got 10 for the women and 10 for the men.
Okay.
And then the kitchen is broken up into 4 different kitchens, because pizza and pasta cooks different than burgers and fries. That cooks different than fried chicken fingers. That cooks different from tacos or filet. Mm-hmm. So there's 4 separate kitchens, but they all share the same expo line.
That's amazing.
It's designed around a computer system that was developed that I had the opportunity to use when I owned the food hall. Mm-hmm. And when the order comes in, the printers print at the station. If there's pizza, burger, chicken wings, and 2 tacos, that's 4. That's every kitchen. Mm-hmm. The printers print the pizza prints at the pizza concept kitchen. The chicken prints at the chicken. The burgers printed. And so when those orders come up, the food runners come and they look and they run the food.
How can they time it so that it all comes up at the same time?
The guy that's expos the window, there's one on each side. Uh-huh. So 2 kitchens get an expo guy. And you'd be amazed how the flow works. It works. When we had the food hall, when I did the food hall, we originally had at least tenants at every stall. And we had 18 stalls. Well, in my opinion, it didn't work. So I got rid of every one of them. And I developed 18 concepts for each stall. But the way I produced the food in a major kitchen. One of the concepts I developed was a rotisserie chicken concept, where you come in and buy the whole chicken. We would put 40 chicken on a rotisserie first thing in the morning, and 20 of those chickens would be for the Caesar salad, chicken salad, and the chicken tacos.
And the other concepts.
Yeah. All the sauces were made in one kitchen. Mm-hmm. All the baking was done in one kitchen for all the concepts. So it was, trust me, it worked well.
Well, you know what? We are going to have to talk about a food hall in an entire segment, because you had actually asked me at one point, and unfortunately COVID happened, but you had asked me to actually join you down there and start working at a concepting, branding, marketing level with that thing. Yes. And it would have been so much fun to be in that space, because what you did, I've never heard of any other food hall doing. And so I really want to talk about that as well, because wow, it was just genius.
I went as far to Anaheim and went to the one, in the old Sunkiss warehouse.
Yeah, the packing district.
I mean, that's how far my homework went.
That was amazing. we're out of time. So, I mean, honestly, folks, I can sit on the phone with Bruce every single week and we talk like this after all talk. So I'm really happy that all of you listeners have joined us. And I'm really looking forward to Bruce coming back again. Again, this is Diane Armitage with Bruce Russo. It's also on every podcast platform. Bruce, I want to thank you again for being here. You've been awesome.
Thank you.
And you're just amazing. I'm just so glad that we're friends.
Looking forward to the next show.
Me too. All right, my
Fine.
friend.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next week, and I'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Bruce and Diane on this journey of mastering restaurant revenue. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback helps them deliver even more of what you want to hear. Until next time, keep refining your approach, stay passionate about your craft, and here's to your restaurant's continued success.